Hello, and welcome to another instalment of the pharmaphorum podcast. My name is Dominic Tyre, and I'm pharmaphorum's creative and editorial director. For episode 21, I spoke with Scott Heimlich, who's Vice President of the Amgen Foundation and Director of Philanthropy at Amgen Inc., about some of his company's work to support science education. Amgen is the founding sponsor of Lab Exchange, which is a free online science education platform from Harvard University, and Scott explained how he hopes it will drive inclusion in the scientific process and spark collaboration. He also talked to me about how the platform can address the challenge of access to lab facilities that many aspiring scientists face. You can find more details of this episode, including a download link for the podcast, and information about other instalments in the series at pharmaphorum.com/podcast. The Pharmaphorum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast and Stitcher, where you can find and subscribe to it by searching for Pharmaphorum. Scott, welcome to the Pharmaphorum podcast. I'm really looking forward to our conversation about the Lab Exchange portal, but I wonder, before we start looking at the portal itself, could you give me a quick introduction to the Amgen Foundation and tell me a little bit about its work?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The Amgen Foundation is the main philanthropic arm of the biotechnology company Amgen. We make a difference in communities across the world where Amgen staff live and work, but go actually well beyond that. Our main focus is on science education and how we can inspire tomorrow's scientists to enter the scientific workforce. We're also thinking about scientific literacy. And so on those two tracks, we do a number of activities and support a number of programs that are making a difference across the world.
And can you give the listeners just a little bit of an idea around some of the other programs that the foundation is involved with? When you say scientific literacy and education, what sort of specific types of programs might the foundation be involved in?
Sure, I'm happy to do so, and that actually helps with why Lab Exchange exists today. We have a program called the Amgen Biotech Experience. It's actually in England, as well as many other countries across the world, that brings biotechnology into high school classrooms. We have approximately 90,000 students across the world that go through those labs with their teacher in their classroom every year. We provide research-grade equipment. We train the teacher that folks are cloning a gene, doing a transformation, expressing and purifying a protein right in their own classroom. And so, for instance, in England, our partner is the University of Hertfordshire. In Massachusetts, in the United States, it's Harvard University. In a place like Singapore, it's Singapore Science Center. And this has been a wonderful way for us to introduce biotechnology and to introduce students to science. At the higher education level, we have a program called Amgen Scholars. We have a major commitment to that program. We're well over $70 million over 16 years to ensure that students at any college or university get a chance to go and spend the summer at a top elite research university. So a student from, let's say, Romania has a chance to go and spend the summer at the University of Cambridge. A student from a small college in the U.S. can go and spend the summer at Harvard or Stanford or Caltech. We run that program across the world, as well as the Amgen Biotech Experience. But at the end of the day, those two programs are reaching a rather, 90,000 students is wonderful. But when you think about how many students there are, that are 16 and interested in science, it's a small sliver. And same with the Amgen Scholars Program, where we reach a few hundred students. So Lab Exchange is looking at programs like that and saying, we need to give more students across the world the opportunity to engage in science. And how can we harness technology in a way that will allow us to do so? You can't replicate exactly what happens in the real lab, but you can still do a number of things if you use technology right to introduce students to the scientific process and to prepare them for folks that hopefully go on and get a chance to do science in the real world.
That's really great work there. So what exactly does the Lab Exchange platform provide to students? So how does it work?
Sure. I guess the way to think about it is it's a very powerful learning and teaching platform. When many folks first look at it, they see the some of the lab simulations and the videos and the other assets. There's something called scrollable interactive. There's a number of different ways that the Harvard team has used to engage students in science. And I think, I'm very excited about the potential of just, a student or a teacher looking at some of those lab simulations or other assets to better understand science and how the scientific process works. But the real power of Lab Exchange is not in looking at a single video or a simulation or you have what are called dynamic textbooks. The power of Lab Exchange is actually that what's been created is a single dynamic repository. Think of it as a really big library of a number of high-quality curated assets. I said to someone the other day, if you type biology into Google, you get 10 billion hits. So for a student that wants to, really learn something, you need to, narrow down the range of assets that are available. But the power of Lab Exchange is actually putting in the hands of the user, whether that's a teacher or a student, the power to shape those assets into a story and to make it unique for the objective you're trying to achieve for a learner. And let me give an example. Maybe I'll just pick on, pharmaphorum. Dominic, if you were trying to explain pharmaphorum to a group of folks in the pharmaceutical industry, you would tell one story, right? You give a talk in a certain way. If you were trying to talk about pharmaphorum to a group of 16-year-olds, you would change that story, right?
Absolutely.
You might have the same learning objective, but a different audience. And Lab Exchange at the heart of it is going to allow educators to change the story based on their audience by utilizing the assets in that library to not just utilize assets, but to even create their own assets to tell a story that makes sense for that audience. And that's, really at the heart of the power of the platform. Let me stop there. I went on longer than I
No problem. So in terms of the Lab Exchange platform, then, of course, it's the, if I got this right, it's the Amgen Foundation as the founding sponsor of the platform. You've got Harvard University working on the development, launch and growth side of it. But you're also partnering with the edX platform. So for listeners that aren't aware of edX, it's an open source learning platform, currently the largest one in the world. So you've got some pretty global, some pretty large ambitions for the portal, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's built on the edX platform. And what's exciting is, yes, the Amgen Foundation has provided the funding. The team at Harvard, under the direction of Professor Robert Liu, has built the platform. But it's on edX, and we already have collaborators from across the world, whether that's Wellcome Genome Campus, Khan Academy, and many others. I think when you think about where the platform is today and where it's going to be tomorrow, it's pretty exciting. In other words, this platform could have been built, and it could have been, hey, here at Harvard, we're going to build 500 assets, and that's going to be the platform. And the route that was taken is actually much more exciting. Harvard has built a number of assets, but we have other organizations approaching us saying, hey, as teachers and others construct what are called pathways on the platform, can they use our assets as well? Khan Academy has a wonderful resources in biology. I know that because the Amgen Foundation funded the biology content on Khan Academy. There's a number of wonderful organizations out there that are creating great content. And so we're making sure that it's not a free-for-all. This is not meant to be YouTube and to suddenly have 10 million, cat videos. Nothing against YouTube. There's wonderful content on YouTube as well. But we want to make sure that the platform is curated. And so not everyone will be a partner, but edX is, a key partner, because the potential to take the courses that are on edX, break those up into small chunks. Today, if I said, oh my gosh, there's a wonderful 2-minute clip in this genetics course taught by that professor at Imperial College London, I would tell you to go sign up for that class and go to the week 7 and go to minute 52. In the Lab Exchange world, the ability to take out that 2-minute clip and insert it right into a pathway, and so suddenly that 2-minute clip is being used by a 10th grade teacher in Puerto Rico is there, and that's something we're quite excited about, that the fact that edX is part of this.
It certainly sounds like it will be hugely increasing the reach of the portal. So if we look at the portal itself, it's aimed at I think high school and college age students. But I'd be interested to get your thoughts on what sort of scientific learning needs, what sort of scientific learning gaps that age range tends to have at the moment, and how the portal is going to help fill some of those gaps.
It's a great question, and I go back to something I said earlier. So there are different use cases for this platform. If I pick on, I'll just, since I believe you're calling from England.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So a high school student that is supported by the University of Hertfordshire to do the Amgen Biotech experience, a student like that has the opportunity to go through these labs in their classroom. What we've done on Lab Exchange is we've actually built all of the Amgen Biotech experience labs virtually. So when you get into a student, the day before they go and they clone a gene, that teacher can assign that student cloning the gene virtually. And they're able to practice. There's no cost to the student. They can practice 30 times. They can fail. Failure is such an inherent part of the scientific process. And when they get to class the next day, they're better able to be successful now when they clone a gene with their teacher. So that's one use case among many. Now let's pick on a student in, let's say Alaska, so up in the United States. And let's say that student does not have an opportunity to do the actual lab. That school can't afford the equipment. We don't have the program there. There's much less opportunity at that particular school. That student can still go onto this platform. They can do the same exact lab and get exposed and engage the scientific process in the same way, even without the chance to do it in the classroom the next day. They are having a chance to gain a scientific mindset. Another element of the platform I'll just bring up is as we think about the challenges that face the pharmaceutical industry, the challenges that face us all, whether it's healthcare or the environment or beyond. Diversity is a huge issue, when you look at where scientists come from and, scientific impact. Another thing that will be on the platform are stories of scientists from all different backgrounds, across gender, ethnicity, national origin. And, at the heart of it, what are we trying to do? I want that 16-year-old or 22-year-old or a younger student, I want them to see themselves in science. And at the heart of Lab Exchange, when you get a chance to do and engage in science virtually, when you get a chance to hear the story of someone that looks like you talking about their journey in science, when you get a chance to sign up and have a mentor on Lab Exchange, all of these things are being brought together on one platform to create a space that hopefully, we use the word accelerator, hopefully accelerates the number of students and the diversity of students that consider science as a career.
That's a great aim. So taking those thoughts of themes of diversity a little bit further, how far do you think the Lab Exchange platform is going to level the playing field for students, for science students?
So that's a huge focus, not just for Lab Exchange, but for the Amgen Foundation overall. I mean, that's our partnership with Khan Academy started 5 years ago, and the growth that that platform has had now with 90 million registered users is incredible. I think, when you think about leveling the playing field, there's different examples you could use, but if we take the example I gave you before, and just imagine a student that, let's say a student that gets to college and there's research at that college. And a student walks up to that professor, and let's say that student grew up in an affluent family, they went to a private, elite high school, and they had a chance to do many different types of labs. And they can walk up to a professor and say, hey, listen, I'm interested in doing research. I know how to run a gel. I've done CRISPR, which is around gene editing. I've done all of these things at high school, and, I'm ready to contribute to your lab. And let's take a student next to them who grew up in a much more, a lower income neighborhood, much less affluent. They had none of those opportunities in high school. That same student get to that same college, they walk up to that same professor, they have a much lesser chance, unless the professor says, hey, I'm going to really go out on a limb here. They have a much lesser chance of getting into science based on the skills they're initially bringing. So I think where lab exchange can really be powerful in leveling the playing field is by providing a way for free. And I think that's critical. There's a lot of wonderful platforms and online things out there. But Khan Academy and Lab Exchange, these are free. As you know, Amgen, we're not in the education field or business. So this is truly philanthropic as you think about the millions we hope to reach over many years. By doing this for free and really democratizing access to science education, we're going to give a chance for that other student to really learn and engage. And by doing that, they may have a greater chance of showing that professor, or when they go for that first job as a lab technician, of showing, again, I'm not saying you can replicate the physicality of what happens, actually in the lab, but you can do some pretty incredible things. And I think that's probably a great way to talk about the leveling the playing field that we hope this platform can achieve.
Mm-hmm. And so looking at the portal, it'll have a focus first, certainly on biology. That seems to ties nicely in, of course, to Amgen's biotech roots. So why focus on biology first, or is that just the first building block in terms of what you would like the platform to look like in the longer term?
So that's a great question. And as you might imagine, the platform and the power that it brings to learning and teaching could be relatively agnostic when it comes to subject matter. Amgen, as you recognize, is we are first as a company. Biology is key. We look at this as the biocentury. At the same time as the foundation thinks about how we make a difference in science or STEM education, we've tended to focus more on biology and the life sciences in particular, given its importance to the biocentury and everything that's happening across healthcare and across the world. On the same token, if you look at where the professor who leads this is, with a biology professor in the molecular and cellular biology department at Harvard. So biology and biotechnology was a natural place for us to start. And it's a place that I think, we're very excited about. Having said that, the ability and already, if you go on the platform today and you go under content, you've already started to see chemistry and immunology and a number of other subjects. These disciplines at the end of the day are somewhat arbitrary, and they're so connected. And so many of the challenges of our time are going to be solved not with, learning from one particular industry, but from, really disciplines across a number of settings. So we think of it as, really starting with the fundamental life sciences, but overall this community around learning and teaching science is going to grow over time. And I would look at biology and biotechnology as just the start.
Okay. So, of course, the Lab Exchange portal it's been in the works for a year or two, I imagine, but it had its official launch, at any rate, in January 2020, and made its debut with it. But I love the tagline that it launched with, the everyone needs science. Science needs everyone. It's a lovely thought. It'd be great to finish up this episode of the podcast to get your thoughts on your hopes for what you can achieve through Lab Exchange in the future.
Sure. What I'm so excited about Lab Exchange is I think it's a tool. It's not just a tool, a powerful tool for the Amgen Foundation. It's really a tool for us all. Once folks understand what the platform is and what it can do, the potential for any educator or a parent or anyone that wants to teach something to someone else, particularly in the life sciences, but well beyond over time, that tool can be quite powerful. And if you think about it, when I think about this, learning is key, right? But learning is really important when you apply those learnings to a social issue. And so I think that where Lab Exchange can go over time is not just in helping more young people and more people of any age, for that matter, to learn and understand and appreciate science, but to go beyond that and to be thinking about how can I take what I know about science or about any other topic and apply it to a challenge or a problem we face. And so I think the real power of lab exchange is going to come over time from not just the teaching and learning, which can be powerful in and of itself, but from those organizations that partner with us, those educators and students that partner with us to take those learnings, apply them to challenges in their communities and that face us all, and to really help us to advance the social issues and other issues that we all deal with. So I think that over 5 years from now, potentially is where lab exchange can start to have a very big difference in neighborhoods and much more broadly.
Okay, well, certainly, Scott, we wish you all the very best with the ambitions to advance science education. And thank you very much for joining the pharmaphorum podcast.
I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, Dominic.
And that rounds up episode 21 of the pharmaphorum podcast and my discussion with Amgen's Scott Heimlich about lab exchange and supporting science education. You can find more details of this episode, including a download link for the podcast and information about other instalments in the series at pharmaphorum.com/podcast. The pharmaphorum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast and Stitcher, where you can find and subscribe to it by searching for pharmaphorum. And don't forget to visit our website to sign up for daily or weekly email pharmaceutical news and analysis bulletins. And follow us on Twitter, where we are at pharmaphorum.